Hello, welcome back to State and Local Government. This week your lecture is going to be a little light. We really covered the basics of state and local government last week. And then this week, it's kind of further looking at state and local government systems. We are going to have some lecture a little bit about the Illinois State Constitution, right? So the Illinois State Constitution, our current Constitution is actually the fourth Constitution that the state has ever had. So that's interesting. Our first state constitution was signed in 1818. This was the constitution signed for Illinois to become a state. Now, this constitution was ratified it was drafted by 33 of the delegates. They actually met in Kaskaskia, and later then in August of 1818, this constitution is officially adopted and becomes basically one of the preconditions for statehood is that you had to have this constitution written. So this will be our constitution that we take with us as we venture into statehood. Now, we looked at the state constitutions of New York, Kentucky, and Ohio for inspiration for our state constitution. So the original state constitution had 8 articles. That is important to note, 8 articles. And essentially, it was considered a very liberal constitution for the time. It allowed all white males who had lived in the state for 6 months the right to vote. This is what is considered liberal because at this time a lot of states required that you owned property to be able to vote. Illinois is not going to include that property ownership requirement. So when Illinois was a territory, the capital was in Kaskaskia. And this is where the delegates will meet. They meet on Monday, August 3rd of 1818, and they begin drafting that constitution. Now, one of the first 2 Illinois state senators, Judge Jesse Thompson, will serve as the president for this constitutional convention. The other leader that should be acknowledged is Elias Kent Kane, and he is only 24 years old at the time. It's kind of a big deal, right? To be in such a high leadership role at such a young age. Elias Kent Kane will also become Illinois' first Secretary of State, and then he will be a United States Senator from Illinois. The Constitution's officially approved by all these delegates on August 26th of 1818. So that is another important distinction. Now, many people criticized the Illinois Constitution because they believed that it did not go far enough to prohibit slavery. However, both the House and the Senate did approve the Constitution for statehood, and Illinois would become, and President James Monroe will sign this legislation on December 3rd of 1818. So this will bring us into statehood. Our second state constitution is going to be ratified in 1848. Now, by the 1840s, basically our original constitution is very outdated. We were once a land of very few people, to quickly growing to about 10 times the population that we once were. This means that the state is undergoing a bunch of changes by 1848, both economically and politically. So there is a constitutional convention call, or an attempt to call for a constitutional convention in 1842. But this actually fails. So it isn't until 1846 that we see these people approve that attempt to call a constitution. Now, voters will elect delegates to the Constitutional Convention in April of 1847, and 162 delegates will convene in Springfield on June 7th of 1847. The Constitutional Convention will adjourn on August 31st of 1847. So this one takes considerably longer to write, right? Like, we remember that first one, it was like less than a month. This one, we're looking at 2.5, almost 3 months of gathering. Now, on March 6th of 1848, voters approve this new constitution. And basically, there's 2 amendments that are also presented to the voters, which they also approve. And those go into effect on April 1st of 1848. So this constitution is much more detailed. It is much longer than the original. And it reduces the size and powers of the legislature while strengthening the executive branch in our state. Now, this is done because there was an insistence to create a state bank that a lot of people really did not agree with, and it ended up leaving the state in a lot of debt and causing the state a lot of problems. So they decided that the problem was that the governor didn't have the power to stop these legislatures. So they're going to make the governor more powerful and then make these legislatures less powerful. Now, it's kind of interesting, right? So, and then in addition, before the 1848 Constitution, there were a lot of different areas in that 1818 Constitution that set up for people to be appointed rather than elected. These positions are things like the Secretary of State and members of the state Supreme Court. Today we elect them. That is because of this 1848 Constitution. Also, the 1818 Constitution allowed for all white males in the state of Illinois to vote. This included those who were not citizens. The 1848 Constitution will add that citizenship requirement for voting. That's pretty common now. Today, we know that you must be a citizen to vote federally. That is also a rule now. So basically, the Illinois Convention, the Constitution in 1848 will actually make it, will also require that we do ballots for our voting. Now, prior to this, we did voice voting, which means you walked in, told people how you voted, and they basically made a check column. Obviously, that could be highly inaccurate, right? It could be like, oh, Bob Smith voted for this person, I don't like this person, we're just gonna give that vote to the person I like, right? So we moved to ballot voting at this time. And we also try to extend the vote to African Americans. They vote on whether to separate 2 amendments. One was banning African American immigration into Illinois, and another was a levy on property tax to help pay off the state debt. Voters will approve both, which is weird, that in the same Constitution we're making an effort to allow African Americans to vote, which fails, but then, you know, it passes that we try to ban African Americans from moving to our state. That was approved with the vote. Basically, this Constitution is going to remain in effect until our 3rd state constitution, which we will come back and talk about in a few minutes. Bye.